Welcome everyone. See how beautiful it is outside? It's
gorgeous.
Gorgeous summer day, even though we're having a little bit of a heat wave and we're going into droughts here where we are, But
can't control the weather, can you?
No, you can't.
No.
But for those of you who don't know us, we are the Bridge Builders of Diversity, where we are bridging the gap between the disability community and the typical community. And today we're going to talk about representation. And, when you hear that term, what does it really mean, Roberta? What does representation mean?
I'm so glad you asked, Sherry.
Anytime.
Representation means representing either a person of a less represented, I'm going to use that word twice in the same sense, a less represented group. So if you think about the majority of the things that you see in media, in the movies, people are white, heterosexual, able.
I do think we do see a little bit more different groups represented.
We're starting to see a lot more groups represented. We're starting to see same-sex couples represented, like in movies. Right. We're starting to see people of various shades and ethnicities in advertising, in children's books, in media in general. We're also starting to see people with different abilities represented.
Right, and that's what we really want to talk about.
That's what we want to talk about today.
People with disabilities having representation.
So representation means the same thing for all groups. I think we're going to call it, one of the words I heard to refer to people who are not like mainstream is marginalized groups that you don't normally think about. Mm-hmm. And those are people with disabilities, and they don't get a lot of attention. So I thought we would talk about the importance of representation.
And my own personal theory about why people with disabilities aren't very well represented is a lot of people with disabilities, depending on their range of ability, like my son has Down syndrome, so his speech isn't very well. Like, he understands a lot of what's going on,
but it's difficult to understand what he's saying.
Right, so it's very hard for him to advocate for himself compared to somebody who's in a wheelchair and can talk well and express themselves. So you have the broad range. So especially like people like my son get left out of the equation a lot because they can't verbally express themselves. And it's kind of like when somebody comes from another country. Like, my grandfather was an immigrant and spoke very broken English. And I remember as a young girl how people talked horribly to him or yelled at him and stuff like that, and they thought he was stupid, and he was a very bright man. And I see that carry over into the disability community.
Well, I'm super, super glad that you brought up, especially, I love when you talk about Nathan, but one of the things that you brought up is super important, is that's one of the things that is so important about representation, is to dispel myths. Because a lot of times, the general population that sees somebody who doesn't speak clearly like Nathan and thinks he doesn't understand or he's not capable, and they get concerned. I'm not going to say that everybody who doesn't understand people with disabilities is evil, though it is really easy to go down that track, but we won't. It's really easy to point fingers when you don't understand. That's why we're here, to build understanding. So one of the important things about representation is it shows the world who may not know somebody, who isn't fortunate enough to know somebody like Nathan, who isn't fortunate enough to know somebody who has a mobility issue and uses a wheelchair, or somebody who has a sensory impairment and needs a walking stick or a guide dog, or hearing aids or cochlear implants, or use signs to communicate. That it's very, very easy to fall into stereotypes and misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. So one of the important things about representation is to build understanding. And that's kind of where we are. That's what's important to us, is to build understanding, build a bridge of understanding through education. So representation is one step in the right direction.
And just for those of you who don't know us, I'm Sherry. I'm a mother of a child with Down syndrome, and this is...
I'm Roberta. I'm a special education teacher.
Yes.
I'm clinging to my voice.
Yes.
Clinging to it.
She lost her voice. But yeah, so, look for, in social media and stuff, look and see if you see a lot of people represented, because I'd love to see those comments down below.
Please, and give us some great examples.
Yeah.
I've been, every time I see a putt, now that's where I wanted to go with this.
Oh, okay.
There's positive representation,
Right.
and then there's negative representation. A negative representation is going to reinforce a stereotype.
Right.
For example, I'm going to say people with Down syndrome are intellectually disabled and not capable. That's a stereotype. Get rid of that. A positive representation is going to be an example, like, I harp on this movie all the time, I should get royalties, is the Peanut Butter Falcon. Is it represents a young man with Down syndrome, but it also represents his abilities and his superpowers and the things that make him wonderful. Positive representation of a person with Down syndrome.
And speaking of Down syndrome and representation, Frankie Stevens, I believe is his name, who's done many talks in front of Congress and everything.
Oh, that's his name.
Yeah, Frank.
Sorry.
I think it's Frank Stevens. Phenomenal advocate of the Down syndrome community and their right to exist.
And he's an individual with Down syndrome.
He is.
So
Phenomenal speaker. He has the gift of speech. And just because a person with Down syndrome doesn't have the ability to speak well, doesn't mean they don't have the same abilities cognitively.
right.
And many children today with Down syndrome actually have normal IQs. I have to throw that in there because a lot of people...
Thanks to early intervention
Yes.
and good teachers.
Thanks to people like Roberta and the PTs and the OTs who push these
Yes.
children.
Oh, don't forget to shout out to the speech pathologist.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
They're a very important person in this
It's
equation.
near and dear to my heart.
Yes. So they really help these children build these skills and reach those very important stages of development when they're younger.
Right, they reach their full potential because they've had early intervention. But we digress.
I'm sorry.
We always digress.
I
But
know.
these are good bird walks that we go on. The other thing about representation is that its importance to the disability community. It's important for a young child with Down syndrome or with a mobility issue or with a sensory impairment to see people like themselves.
Yes.
I know minority people say this all the time, that it was so hard for them growing up because they never saw anyone like them. Well, people with disabilities feel the exact same way. So when I see somebody in a wheelchair being represented positively, I give a little, I do a little dance. Because that's so important. I know that somewhere out there's a child in a wheelchair that's saying, yes, someone like me.
Yeah.
And they develop a positive attitude about themselves.
Yes, and speaking of that, like my son had his friend Gabe is the same age as him, same class. So me and his mother made sure that they stayed in the same classroom so they would have somebody who is like them.
How fortunate.
Yes.
How fortunate, because that's one of the things that happens a lot to people with disabilities is they become isolated. And then they're looking at media that doesn't represent themselves, and that gives them a negative self-concept. And we all know that that can be debilitating.
Yeah.
It above and beyond their actual disability. So representation matters on so many levels. Not just it's important to see people who are different, but it's touching hearts and minds. People, the public is aware of the abilities and seeing people with disabilities on a positive light.
Yeah.
And people with disabilities are seeing them represented. Let's try that again. Represented in a positive light so they feel good about themselves. It's a win-win for everybody when we highlight our differences in a positive way.
Yeah, and so in the comments, I'd like you guys to share positive representation that you see.
Absolutely,
And
whether
share
it's a
whatever.
movie, an article. I just saw a TikTok.
Yes.
This is what got me started on this. I'm obsessed.
She's been like obsessed over it for a couple of hours.
I'm obsessed with this woman named Jax. She made a song called I Know Victoria's Secret or Victoria's Secret or something like that. I should probably get the title right. But she did a flash mob, and one of the people in the flash mob was in a wheelchair. And I was like, yes, because people in wheelchairs do dance.
Yeah.
And they are graceful and beautiful. And so, Jax, if you're listening, we love you and thank you for your positive representation.
Absolutely.
So, thumbs up from Bridge Builders of Diversity.
Yes. And I'm also going to put a link in our description, too, of our TED Talk on people with disabilities.
Yes, and it really highlights the importance of seeing people with disabilities in a positive light because they are way more capable than you would think.
Yes, absolutely. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate everyone.
All the buttons.
Hit all those buttons. Don't forget to comment a positive representation
Yes,
story, video, share the link.
Or something that you would like to see from us. If there's a topic that you want to know more about,
Yep, we do anything to do with this.
we would love to talk about it in a positive representation.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. You want to come say hi, Nate?
Come say hi, buddy.
Come say hi? No, he's not
Nope,
gonna.
he's done.
Oh, all right. We'll see you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.